I'm glad that we're talking about this because it's reminding me about that sense of community and that there are so many wonderful people here that care, that are doing everything they can, and that's what I need to focus on.
You're listening to Find the Good News, Episode 85, The Growing Voice, featuring Dominique Darbonne of the Flamethrowers. Find the Good News is produced by Parker Brand Creative Services, a branding agency that thinks sideways, pushes forward, and gets your brand up. See what else we do at parkerbrandup.com. Since starting this Good News podcast signal, it's been my great pleasure to meet people from my region that I may not have met otherwise. The truth is that this transmission has allowed me to do much more than simply meet them. I've gotten to know them in some very deep and personal ways. More often than not, when I finish one of these visits, I leave the conversation feeling like I've gained a new friend. Other times, it goes beyond friendship and expands into the category of alliance. In talking with Dominique Darbonne, I gained a friend and an ally. My local listeners may know Dominique as the singer for the on-fire band, the Flamethrowers, but like each of us, her story goes so much deeper than her vocal vibrations. I feel that I had this conversation with Dominique at a very peculiar time in her life. It was clear from our visit that there is a rising passion inside of her to use her voice beyond the local stage, even away from song, to bring attention to local injustices that affect her community and champion for those underdogs that are working tirelessly to make this region more civil and healthy. She reminds me yet again that it is important to use right speech and right action when you're on your path to waking up. Beyond that, know who your allies are and bring them together to speak as one voice as often as you can. That, dear friends, is a community worth speaking out for. So perk up. Maybe steep some tea and enjoy some green and open space in your hometown. Think about how the world is changing, how it's changing you, and how you can put your reflections and your voice to work for those around you. Then press play on a little good news.
Wake up, it's morning. You're dreaming up a story. I can hear the way it's going, 'cause you're laughing in your sleep on the path to your deliverance, and a holy wall of light pouring through your window.
Old news, bad news, fake news. Sometimes you just want to shut it all down and get no news at all. With Find the Good News, I aim to change that by focusing on good people doing good work. I visit with artists, educators, civic and spiritual leaders, musicians, business owners, students, volunteers, and everyday citizens who are using their creativity, resources, and talents to bring hope and happiness to their corner of the world. In each episode, I dig into the hearts and minds of my extraordinary guests. We have street-level conversations about relatable things going on in their lives, discover the critical life experiences that shape them, the perspectives that drive them, and the fundamental beliefs that are anchoring them to a path of goodness. There's a lot of news in the world. My name is Oran Parker, and I'm going to find the good.
And I love you just as well.
Often I find my story connects or is entangled with somebody else's. Even if we haven't really encountered each other, there's some little piece of what they're talking about that you can either relate to, or sometimes you find you have an actual thread somewhere in the world that's connecting you to them,
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Especially lately, like as an adult, in the last, honestly, 2 years of my life, really, or 3, since my kids have been born. Just these people that I had good friendships with at one point in time, and nothing really happened. We just,
Sure.
Life got in the way. And in the last few years, they've been coming back into my life in these like really major ways. In my personal stories, they're being represented, and I'm being represented in major ways in their personal stories. And it's just really cool,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. We jumped right in, and that's how it goes on this show. We don't do, like I said, no hard opening, but I do like to ask folks to give me the elevator speech, of who they are, so the audience knows who I'm talking to.
Okay, the elevator speech of who I am. Well, my name is Dominique Darbonne, and I am born and raised in Lake Charles. I went to Hamilton Christian Academy for my entire schooling career, except for 1 year that I was homeschooled. And then I did some time at McNeese, but I am not a higher education person. It's just not for me. So anyway, I have lived away briefly, but mostly I've lived here my whole life. My husband, Joseph Darbonne, is a local as well. And my family business is Don's Car Wash, so people may recognize that. Yeah. But I also am a member of the band Flamethrowers. Yeah. And yeah, so Joseph and I are the lead singers of Flamethrowers, and I've been in the Flamethrowers 7 years this spring.
Wow.
And which is another weird thing. When I graduated young, I was 17, and I used to sneak into OBs as a 17-year-old to watch the Flamethrowers play. And I just remember being there in the crowd and wondering like what it would be like. And so it's really bizarre that now I am in the Flamethrowers.
So wait, I guess I didn't realize that. So the Flamethrowers were around before you were a member. I didn't know that. Okay, so I thought y'all formed it. I didn't realize you.
Flamethrowers have been around since like 2002, I want to say.
Okay.
2002 or 2003, maybe a little bit longer, but somewhere in there. That might be a little early. Let's see. Okay, so Joseph graduated in 2002. Judd Norman started the band whenever he was in college at LSU. So sometime between 2002 and 2005, Flamethrowers was started. And Joseph is an original member. So the band, he's the only original member left. So the band's been around that long.
Oh, wow. I had no idea. I really didn't know that.
Yeah. The current iteration of the band has been around 7 years. Taylor Lee and I joined the band. Taylor Lee is a dear friend of mine from middle school. He's the first boy whose hand I ever held.
Oh, really?
And yeah. We went to this home church together when we were kids. Anyway, never more further than that. We're just really good friends. And I hadn't seen Taylor in forever. And then all of a sudden, like, we're in a band together.
Yeah, that is just wild, isn't it? There you go again, entanglements, that we have with people, and then it just rolls back around, sort of cyclical.
Yeah. So anyway, that is who I am. And I don't know, I've just always been around town, kind of always been here. I'm a very, I've always been very talkative and friendly and kind of inserted myself into situations. So
yeah, I understand that. It's funny. I'm kind of the same way. And I used to say that I was more of a, not antisocial, but I would avoid social interaction, especially crowds and groups with like the plague. But I would always, even though those were things I avoided, I was always finding myself dead center of some sort of project or leadership role. And I go, why do I keep doing this? I mean, because, but it's, I think what I've found out is it's just a part of my nature, to step back and then stay away from it, but then observe it and then go back into it.
Yeah. You just can't help it.
Yeah, I can't help it. That's right. And I know that about myself, and I used to really frustrate about it. And now I'm aware of it. And, now once you become aware, it's an opportunity to, use it.
Well, and I kind of go through phases where before I joined the band, and when Joseph and I were first dating, I used to be a lot more like flamboyant than I am now. When I joined the band, a lot of that, it took care of, it became a creative output for my personality, right?
Sure.
So I didn't need to act out in social situations anymore or be the center of attention, or not that was always intentional, right? I wasn't trying, I was too much, and there's nothing wrong with being too much. And I wasn't trying to be too much, but it gave me a healthy for my too much. It gave me a place for me to take my creativity and the parts of myself that I wanted to experiment with socially. And it gave me a safe, creative outlet for it.
No, I get
where
it totally.
People wouldn't judge me because it's just a performance, right? Joseph and I kind of have, I won't get into that, maybe later. But it changed my personality a little bit because not changed it. It allowed me to relax into myself a little bit more because it gave me a productive outlet for some of the parts of myself that people really didn't get in a basic social setting.
I understand. Absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't have said, your words could have come out of my own mouth, what you just said.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
I mean, I can compare that to just us sitting here on this podcast. You know, for years, I mean, podcasts have been around a long time, but I'm sort of new to that world only in the last few years. And it was kind of by accident that I discovered a conversation that I just got sucked into through a podcast. And so I realized in listening to that conversation that they were getting into territory that I really appreciated. But I noticed that in other avenues or other arenas, that's the right thing to say, that they weren't getting into that territory. And I was like, okay, there's something about the podcast that really attracted me. And then that's where I would connect with what you just said. Now I've found an outlet where I can explore all these other dimensions, but it's still utilizing skills that I've acquired that weren't allowing me to explore those dimensions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. It's like I'm not there. There are certain gifts that I have with people. Or that I'm able to use, like in communicating with people, that were outshadowed by my need to perform in some way and need to have attention in some way. And now that I have that safe outlet, it allows me to just like be able to, not always, I mean, I still am a ham and sometimes I still, need to cut up, but like it allows me to really be present more than it used to be,
Sure.
So, and in going through that, I did go through a phase where I thought, before I had my children, for a little while, where I thought like I was antisocial. I did not want to be,
Sure.
I didn't really want to be around people. I very much cocooned. I went through a depression for a couple of years. And then after my kids, especially Hazel, were born, I really had started to realize like a lot of my strength comes from my community and from the energy that I get from exchanging ideas with people. And even, I mean, I was very team no new friends for a few minutes because I didn't have time for new friends. I barely had time, for myself. But now I'm just realizing that it is important for me to have boundaries. It is important for me to take care of myself. Not everybody is owed my time, but when I share myself with others, the right others, the benefits outweigh, the strain that it takes from me.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So
no, it does make sense. I completely understand that as well. I really do.
And I was just literally like days before all of this, I was just getting to a place of like really entering back into being social. And like, I was working on a musical project and working with other musicians and like making new friends. And, the kids had gotten to a place where they could both stay with my in-laws and my mom and dad for a night. And like, we could, I could go listen to new music and stuff. So
yeah.
Ironically.
Yeah, I understand all of that. I especially when you've been away from being social for a little while and you make a conscious decision to get back into it, it's really a different experience. And the world changes around you when you're cocooning and things like that. And you're going, because I've been there. I mean, many times. In fact, I would say I probably go through those cycles every few years where I hit a point where I'm like, okay, I kind of need to pull back, and heal a little bit. Not that I'm completely wounded, but I need to pull back in just a little bit and heal before I go back out and start really pushing again. But we do live in strange times, and I found that I hit that cycle where I want to be a little more social through the avenues I'm okay with, but boy, it's more dangerous out there. But on the flip side, I've also made connections that are more robust in a good way,
Well, and like you're saying, the world changes around you. Like when I kind of cocooned Lake Charles, for me personally, I was just not really, aside from like the band and our look, I'm not talking bad about Lake Charles in any way. I didn't feel like aside from the band, I really had a place in the community. You know, I wasn't really working at the car wash, and I wasn't really doing anything. Joseph gave me a little bit of time off from having a real job other than the Flamethrowers for a few months before we decided to have kids, just because I didn't go to college. I worked, you know, and I did, but I was working. And then when I stopped going to college, I just went straight into working. And anyway, he just gave me like a summer. He gave me like an extended summer, and it was awesome. And, yeah, when that was over, I don't know. It was weird. And after I had Bo, like, he was everything. So he became my place, and then things changed. And when I kind of came out again after Hazel and was ready to be back, I was meeting all these wonderful people, and there's just so much amazing stuff going on in our artist community, in our music community. And it was just like, I was feeling such a sense of pride in what had happened while I was gone. And I was also learning that I had a place in all of that, even though I hadn't really been able to be a very active participant. And it was just, I realized I had a career, you know, and I realized that I was a part of this greater community of all these people that I loved and respected and had for years. And they felt the same way about me. And it was awesome. And then this happens, and like, I've really been struggling with our community. I think a lot of people have. I think there's a lot of disappointment and hurt feelings. I hate being emotional about this crap. I'm so tired about it. You know what I mean? Like I felt like before this, like there were a lot of things that our particular area was really united on, and it felt good. And that was just my bubble. I know that there have always, you know, been problems, but it's just, I need to remind I'm glad that we're talking about this, because it's reminding me about that sense of community, and that there are so many wonderful people here that care, that are doing everything they can, you know, and that's what I need to focus on.
It's tough. Look, I mean, I sometimes fall into this trap, and I almost have set myself up to get sideswiped by naming this show "Find the Good News," right? Because there's this sort of implication that we're going to talk about everything positive, right? We're going to talk about all the perfect things and all the perfect people. The reality is that that's actually sort of the trick of this show. I fully believe that you can't get to a lasting goodness without going to the ugly places. I really do believe that.
100%. 100%.
You can get to a temporary good, but you're not going to get to anything that lasts. I do tend to think that sometimes, and you said it, the bubble, we can live in a bubble and go, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. It's great here. Well, it's great maybe from certain people's perspectives, depending on what's all lined up in their life. But it's so easy to forget that there could be a whole nother sector of the community that has a completely different perspective because of what's lined up in their life, you know?
The person next door to you.
Right. No, literally,
yeah.
I think about that quite often. I mean, just my street. You know, everybody's got a different story. Everybody's got different political beliefs on one street. Everybody's got a different, tiers of income. I mean, it's just, and you're having a different experience in a society depending on those factors. And we have to think about that stuff. Like, I think it's so easy to just disregard someone else's ideas and go, oh, that's ridiculous, and just throw it out. I mean, if you're not an artist, let's say, you maybe aren't really fully or connected to the art scene. Just that alone, you may not really fully appreciate that. And so we can look at our community and go, but it's great. We have this great art scene. Well, to somebody else, that's not even on their radar. They're trying to just get by, every day and just barely make it. Art to go out and shop for art is like completely not even
they can't
a reality.
Get produce. They don't give a crap about hanging something on their wall.
And so that's the kind of stuff you do have to talk about if you're going to get to a lasting good, I think.
I completely agree. And I think I hate saying any there's a good thing about this, because that's not true, but this situation is revealing a lot of disparities to people that were not willing to view them previously. I am seeing that.
Sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's nice. And it's also just revealing a lot of gaps in areas where it's overwhelming to think about all of them. I mean, it keeps me up at night. Like, it really does sometimes. It's like, okay, what of these holes can I fill? Is there anything I can do in our community to fix that? Like, who do I know? But it's good that that's happening, because I think that's a step in really, like, accomplishing some change. If we don't allow ourselves to fall back into complacency just because it doesn't directly affect our backyard.
Yeah, no, totally. I totally agree. Yeah, because I mean, everybody's job is different. Some people have never, during this time period, you know, they've got people who have been in this workforce. Some people are able to completely shelter in place. Some people haven't left their homes at all, you know.
We really haven't.
Really?
We have a few times, but for the most part, Joseph's been able to work from home, and I actually thought I was exposed to the flu March 12th.
Yeah.
So we locked down because I didn't want any of our family or friends to get sick. Joseph was still going to work, but his boss was pregnant and immunocompromised. So, like, we were keeping our distance from everybody. Joseph has gone in the last few weeks. I think he's gone to the store like once or twice with a mask. We had a grocery delivery service before any of this ever happened. So,
okay.
So we've been privileged enough to really stay home, and we have. We have.
Yeah.
Because
we've done the same. I mean, we do go out for the supplies. You know, I go probably once every week and a half for some odds and ends, but it's never frivolous. I mean, I haven't went out for anything just like luxury wise. I mean, it's not been, but I mean, honestly, I mean, having supplies is a luxury. Yeah, us too. We go to parks too. We go to parks and, you know, away from folks. We've been lucky in that regard that we've been to some nice green open spaces and there weren't people around, you know.
So almost 2 years ago, we were living in a house one street over from here. And I just had this like gut feeling to check Zillow for listings, and I did. And one street over, there was literally one street. Like, if you stand in the front yard of my old house, you can see my new house.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I said, Joseph, I think we need to go look at this house. And we did, and it was like Oran. It was like I manifested it, and it's on a half an acre in the middle of town.
Wow!
So I'm 2 streets over. Well, I don't want to give my location. I'll just tell you, like, it. When I saw this house, I knew it was ours, but I didn't know why. And I was like, what do we need all this space for?
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't a bad move. It was perfect. It was in our budget. It was everything we needed. But now, like, it's been so amazing and perfect for this time. It's been exactly what we needed, what I had needed to stay sane during this without help from anybody.
Yeah.
You know, Joseph works all day. It's just me and the kids.
Yeah.
From 9 to 5 most days. And we haven't been, my parents keep them. So, I mean, it's fine. It's great. They're my kids. I have them. They're nobody else's responsibility.
No, I understand. Yeah.
But if I didn't have all of this space and a yard to landscape and mow and stuff like that to keep me busy, I would not be okay.
Yeah.
I would not.
That's the same here. We moved our operations home so we could work from home. I mean, I'm recording from home, you know. It's been a little different experience. I think I might have even talked about that in Ashley's episode, you know, I miss the space, you know, that we had to record in. I miss the environment because it was sort of designed and to be open and inviting. And so honestly, it puts more pressure on me to the truth of the matter is because the space did a lot of the work. You know, when someone came to visit, the space said, "You're welcome. Any ideas are open." And so I didn't have that same hurdle. Now, you know, doing it this way, there is no space. The space is digital between us right now. So, you know, it falls back on me. And I honestly at first had a little anxiety about doing it this way. I thought, you know, I can't hide behind the environment. You know what I mean? I mean, it's all us right now. So it always was, is what I've come to realize, but there was just some comfort in having a good space. And I mean, it kind of sounds like your home is that space. You have a good space and it's the right space. How valuable is that, you know?
And I'm happy, I know it. I'm helpless.
Sorry for interrupting the conversation, but I have something I need to tell you about. You may or may not know this, but this podcast is produced in the city of Sulphur, Louisiana, one of the sister cities that make up Southwest Louisiana. All of my childhood memories are wrapped up in the city of Sulphur. It's my home, and it's been a good home for most of my life. There is a growing diversity of unique businesses, services, and events in Sulphur, each with a rich and colorful story to tell about their particular place in this little jewel on the west side of the Calcasieu River. My mission is to promote good news, to put a positive signal out in the world. That's why my team at Parker Brand Creative Services has created the new brand, Sulphur Today. Here's how it works. Post your Sulphur event, service, photos, videos, or information using the hashtag Sulphur Today. That's it. My team and I will scan and curate those posts through the social media platforms we've put in place. Before you make your post, just type hashtag. That's a £sign for the folks that don't know what a hashtag is. And the words Sulphur Today with no space. My team at Parker Brand is monitoring this tag right now, and they're ready to create positive digital curb appeal for our city by sharing all the very best Sulphur has to offer through the Sulphur Today social media pages. As the Sulphur Today project grows, we will be scheduling interviews and video sessions with businesses, events, and services so they can tell their story of Sulphur Today in a series of ongoing micro-documentaries. Look for the eye-catching Sulphur Today sign when you're out and about. And be ready, we may be stopping by to visit you for a photo op. And don't forget to stop by the Parker Brand Creative Services studio in Sulphur to grab a Sulphur Today decal for your vehicle or business. We want people visiting our area to know that they can find all the wonderful things we have to offer with ease and be a part of our history by utilizing the Sulphur Today pages or by searching the Sulphur Today hashtag. Do you want to help us tell the story of Sulphur Today? Here's what I need you to do right now. Visit and like the Facebook page at facebook.com/Sulphur Today. And be sure to share positive Sulphur information and post often using the hashtag Sulphur Today. Now, back to Find the Good News.
I love you just as well.
I know right now that I have an opportunity to be a voice, and I want to make sure that I don't share any particularly polarizing opinions. You know what I mean?
I understand. I do.
Some of my personal beliefs are like way farther to the left than will tell the average person. But I believe that there's a way that I can not support everybody, you know what I mean, but not exclude someone and still allow them to receive my information, even if they don't agree with everything.
It's so hard. That's an interesting subject. I don't want to derail you, but I'll say this. I look back at my life and when my real big changes started to occur in my 20s, and I'll always go back and look at the early things that I was influenced by and the people whose writings influenced me. And some of those people are still living. And I look at like Thich Nhat Hanh, he's a very popular meditation master and writer. But when I discovered him, for me, 20 plus years ago, I was fascinated by the fact that he was a Vietnamese monk living in exile. And that word exile, the gravity of that never really hit me until I was really a lot older. And I think about him quite a bit. And I go, it's great to read his books, and he's a beautiful poet, and I can learn all this stuff about compassion and mercy and peace and you name it across that spectrum. But I always have to remember that he was exiled from his country because he stood on a side of something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I tend to think, I lived in a lot of years where I thought, well, peace is straddling the fence and not rocking the boat. It's saying the right thing.
I don't agree with that. I'm sorry. I'm going to let you continue. I'm just going to say that is not how I feel.
I tend to, as I've gotten older, I've learned, I'm trying to gently, like you do. I want to be gentle.
There are certain situations right now and in this area that are very, very polarizing, and it's possible to talk about the things that are related to that particular situation and their issues without being so abrasive that the people who need to hear it don't hear it.
Right. Yeah, well, right. You don't want to make... Sense? Yeah, no, so it's true. Like, it's totally true. I get what you mean by that.
It's not taking a side. It's just like figuring out a way to share your opinions in a way that will resonate with people and reach them even if they don't agree with you.
Yeah.
Because the thing is like, you're not going to change people's minds, okay? What you have to do is you have to get to a point where you can find some common ground and get them to see just a little bit from your perspective. They don't have to agree with you. They don't have to understand you. They just have to be able to see where you're coming from a little bit, and that plants a seed, right?
Sure.
So maybe on that particular issue, they didn't agree with you. But maybe there's something down the road that you guys don't agree on, but the way you spoke about it before sparks them to understand that they can reach out to you if they have a question, and it facilitates. Not always. There are some times where you just have to be like, F off, you're an asshole. Right. This is not going to get anywhere. But I don't know. I feel like I have a responsibility in some ways because I do know that, I don't mean to be like, this is a time where people are listening to me, but I know that there are some people that are listening, and I want to be very... I want to use any voice that I have for good and for the benefit of our community. And I don't ever want, I know that not everybody's going to agree with me or not everybody's going to like me, but I don't ever want anybody to be able to say that whether they agreed with me or not, that they don't believe I had our community or the greater good in mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
no, I get it. It's kind of like this, and I think this a lot. I was even meditating on this morning, kind of reflecting on the idea that when you build something or you find out that you actually have a signal or a channel of communication and people are tuning into that, you can either burn the world down with it, or you can ask yourself, do I have a responsibility to my fellow man, my community with this signal to use it the right way? I mean, and I'm not going to get off into politics, but I can use the office of the President of the United States as that sort of thing. Yeah. So if you find yourself, if you or I ever find ourselves in a situation where we're President of the United States, we'll just talk about us instead of the actual president.
Yeah.
If Oran ever finds himself the president, I have a responsibility at that point to go, hey, I now have a signal, and a lot of people are listening to what I'm saying. I need to use this for the greater good responsibly. I have to do that, even if it goes against some of my personal, poisons, right? Well,
and another thing I'm learning too is like, you know what? People don't have to know everything about you. They don't have to know everything that you're thinking. Like I'm having such an issue with some local politicians right now, just sharing every single thought that falls out of their head. It's like,
right.
I'm not telling you can't have those ideas. I'm not telling you can't feel that way.
Right.
I'm not. I would never. I'm not telling you can't have conversations like that in your home with the people that are closest to you. I don't agree with it. I'm not going to promote it, but it's completely different to have an opinion like that as a person versus get on your platform as an elected official where people are looking to you for guidance and spewing misinformation and insinuating things that are problematic and dangerous, it just, and I understand, but there's also the thing of like, nobody knows what they're doing right now.
Right.
And this affects everybody so differently. And all of the quote solutions that we're coming up with so far, like there are some very serious issues attached to a lot of them, school closures and food insecurity for children and children living in abusive homes and people living in situations with domestic violence. I mean, there's a laundry list. But the thing is that people are just, I don't know, they're trying to do the best they can, And I think that the attitude, especially of elected officials at this time, instead of creating division people shouldn't be going on rants about how shit sucks. They should be saying, these are the resources I have. How can they help someone? Or this is what I can do. Is there anybody out there that can help me fill in a crack? And I just see people continuing to push their personal opinions and trying to gather attention for themselves personally in this situation instead of using the signal that they have to make a difference. And I don't know, it just makes me sad.
Well, it is
sad. Making me lose respect for some people, but there's still a chance to turn it around. I believe that, there are some people that are still in denial. I don't think they're going to be able to stay in that, unfortunately. I don't.
Right.
But it just, I don't know. I know, look, expectations are the thing that should shoot you in the foot the most, right? Expectations hurt you, but I have expected more of some people that,
Yeah, I have to. I've done this. I've been through that same cycle. I mean, I get up and would say at least a part of my day is like that. I mean, I talk to people that are close to me who say, God, I don't even realize this stuff I don't even know this stuff's going on. Some of these conversations and opinions. And so they're checked out of that. And then, so when I hear that, I've analyzed that for myself. I go, well, how come they're able to do that? And so I realize it really gets back to what we're talking about. It's situation. I can't not enter these information feeds because there are certain things I need to know, right? Because I have different roles. I'm a father, business owner, husband, son, brother, and I also have this signal, right? I mean, and it's granted it's a personal signal, but it's out there, and I know now there actually are people who look for this signal. They want something from it. It helps them in some way. So those are my responsibilities. I have to enter the news feeds to get that. And when I get in there, I'm running into the same things you described. And I go, man, I have to sift through all of this stuff to get to the information that I can then go apply. So that, so you walk out of there and your mind has just got all this other stuff in there that is irrelevant, painful, frustrating, fearful. And so you're carrying away, for me anyway, I carry out of those information feeds just this stuff. And I go, man, then I, as a citizen, I have to sit down and go, oh, before I communicate now, I need to go through and get all that, my dirty stuff out of there so I can put out a good message. But I'm not seeing leaders do that. Not all leaders. I mean, that's not fair, but a lot of them aren't doing that. And I go, man.
It's so annoying that we even have to say not all. I mean, can we stop that? Like, honestly.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, I
get it.
No, I do. I get it.
Not you.
I get what you mean. We have all this wonderful communication technology, and it's just poorly used, in the public sector completely. I mean, it's just, my meditation this morning, something ridiculous came out of one of the news feeds yesterday or one of the press conferences, and I went, oh my gosh, I mean, this is just there's no way to spin this. I mean, and so.
But there is.
But I try to make jest of it at least, and then you get somebody comes at you, they come at you, and you go, well, okay, so how do I deal with this? I've come to believe that it's like, especially with social media, I go, well. And I call them like feed hijackers. It's like, well, maybe troll's the right word. I don't know, but some of these people aren't really trolling. They have legitimate points they want to express, and they have a lot to say. And I go, look, my meditation this morning was, look, if you want to come into one of my signals, okay, but you have that much to say, then let's just do it here instead of there. Because right now you're hijacking my signal. Go build your own signal, and people will come to your signal to hear this stuff. But don't come into my signal. Yeah. I didn't invite you into my signal. And
that's a good point, too.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you came in here. You came into this room, and now you want everyone to listen to what you have to say. Well, you can go build your own signal to do that. You don't have to stay in. You're not going to let that keep happening,
And your posts are so, especially on Facebook, they're so, thoughtful and they're almost like journal entries. So,
that's what they are. They really are. You nailed. That's really what they are. Yeah.
For someone to it's not like you're just, pardon me, but shit posting. You know what I mean?
I do the occasional shit post.
No, but I just mean like on a shit post is fine if someone hijacks it, whatever. But like on a message that you have specifically curated, as Brother Oran for somebody
Sure,
that
yeah.
I totally agree to hijack that is opportunistic and,
Yeah.
a little disrespectful for sure.
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling the frustrations everybody else is feeling out there. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I can see it in myself. So what's it like? I mean, I'm curious about this because when I first moved my operation home, and my biggest social interaction really comes through my podcast. I'm able to, get the type of one-on-one communication that I really thrive on. So that, for me, when I moved it home, I thought, man, I'm not going to be able to do it. And I thought, well, wait a second, I'll continue to do this, and I can just treat it the way I was doing my my non-local podcast,
Right.
with my guests who live wherever. So I was still able to kind of feed that little or scratch that little itch I have to communicate with people like this. But you guys were performers, and so that whole industry has been sort of smacked pretty hard.
Yeah.
So what's that been like for y'all to say, okay, this is sort of not happening right now?
So we're really, really lucky in our household that aside from an outlet and the extra financial, like it really hasn't affected us. It wasn't our main source of income.
Yeah, right,
So
right.
I'm still employed and Joseph is still employed. And so we're really lucky for that. And Joseph is not hating having a break, to be honest with you. He's been a professional musician for a really long time, like 17 years.
Yeah.
And he's not taken very many breaks of longer than a couple of weeks. So he's not hating the time to just relax. But me, it's kind of killing me a little bit, for sure. Especially because, like I said, before this happened, like I had just, Ashley, I don't know how much, Ashley briefly mentioned it, but I was planning, Ashley and Emily Porche and I were planning a big event for June 13th. That was going to be my first show of my own. It was going to be a musical charity event.
Wow.
Featuring a lot of local musicians, and artists, and it is still going to happen. It's unfortunately obviously not going to be able to happen June 13th, but it is still going to happen. But anyway, I was in the middle of all that, about to have my first big band practice, and yeah. So
that just kind of got paused.
Yeah, I am definitely struggling, but the other night I did a little karaoke session in my closet.
I saw that. Yeah, I did. I saw that. With
Beats Pill. And, wasn't my best quality content, but it was really fun. And I'm going to do it again because I think that this is a good time for me to do some research on how I can put out some things on my own. I don't really play an instrument right now. I'm interested. I played some when I was younger, but I'd like to pick that up again when the kids get a little bit older, maybe, and I have a little bit more, or maybe now, who knows? I'll probably never have more time. But the point is, I'm trying to get creative in ways that I alone can express myself musically during this time that don't involve having to bug Joseph, or it's surprisingly difficult to do music over Skype or Zoom, or I've tried with a few people, and it is kind of a nightmare.
I believe that. I wondered about that. I've seen some teachers, music teachers or local ones, and I wondered how they were doing with that.
So I do take voice lessons on Zoom, and that is not bad because it's like direction, and then you play. But trying to do stuff like together, it's very difficult because there's a lag and not everybody's internet speed is the same.
Right.
And it's just like, whew.
Yeah, I can imagine for entertainers, this has been very difficult. I mean, really, it has. For us, we work in advertising, and our typical mode of operation is to act as an extension of someone's brand. We're like their team in the basement that they may not see but once every couple of weeks. And so that really, we were able to kind of we were already, I guess, socially distant physically from a lot of our clients anyway. So this type of communication was pretty common. Wasn't really that hard for us to just distance a little further. But the folks that are, entertainers and people that really it's dependent on one-on-one engagement, I can see that being an issue. Even like some of the video projects I've done where I've had to coordinate a couple of people through Skype and things like that and record them and have them be synced up. It's exactly as you said, their internet speeds are different. Their audio quality is different. The camera work is different, so challenging.
Well, and it's like, we had just gotten to a place in our area where musicians were actually there were enough venues and enough gigs to go around where musicians were starting to be able to like quit their jobs and pay their bills. And now, like we have friends that were fully musicians that like bought houses this year, like bought their first house and stuff. And it's just like, I don't know,
No. Yeah, I know what you mean.
It really sucks. And I really miss performing. I do, but I'm okay. Like when I think about how much I miss performing, I just think about how lucky I am that I have another paycheck, and I just can't stop thinking about my friends that like, that's what they do.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So,
right. I mean, some people are insulated right now, from some of the sufferings that other people are having to face. It could be your choice of profession. It could be where you live. I mean, I have friends in New York City and people, New York State and New York City. So, I've got two really good friends actually. And one, in New York State is having a completely different experience than my friend in New York City who lives in an apartment, so it's like they're dealing with stuff that is completely different than what we're dealing with here. And it's just interesting. And even their perspectives within the same state are completely different. Just like I'm sure people in Lake Charles are having a different experience than people in New Orleans,
Totally.
I've seen, I don't know. I think sometimes it's easy. That's something about, it gets into what we were talking about earlier. Whenever you get a perspective on something, if you don't really make a conscious effort to go out and look at it from other people's perspective, some people may never do that or see why it's necessary. But just 3 hours over from us, you're talking about a different experience completely. And those people have a completely different perspective on this pandemic than we do here in Southwest Louisiana.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's important to do.
And I'm happy, I know it. I'm helped.
I hate to pause the program, but I want to ask you something. Did you know that you can help me and my team at Parker Brand Creative Services grow the Find the Good News signal? For less than a fancy cup of coffee, you can become an Early Risers Club patron on our Patreon page. What's Patreon? Well, it's a way for creators to fund their projects by pooling support from those really passionate people that believe in what they're doing. Do you believe in what we're doing with Find the Good News? I hope you do. We believe that there's already enough negative news in the world, even right here at home, and that good people doing good works deserve a platform to speak from too. That's why we created Find the Good News, and we believe in that simple mission. Maybe you believe in it too. If you do believe in finding and sharing good news, then head over to our Patreon page right now or check out the link in the show description. For a commitment of $3.33 a month, you can join the Early Risers Club of Find the Good News Patreon supporters and get access to the B-Sides, a patrons-only podcast with the crew behind Find the Good News, Parker Brand Creative Services. Each time we level up, the Patreon rewards will get bigger. If you're tired of old news, bad news, and fake news, help support Find the Good News at patreon.com/findthegoodnews. That's patreon.com/findthegoodnews. Now, back to the episode.
And I love you just as well.
So Ashley mentioned you in her episode, and she was pushing. She was like, "You got to get her on the show, right?" So what's your higher idea of how you see yourself in this community? I mean, you're young, right? How old are you?
I'm 30.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you're 30 years
I
old.
turned 30 this last year. Yeah.
You live in Lake Charles.
So,
You've
yeah.
lived here your whole life. Your family has established a
Yeah.
business here that it's sort of a staple. Everybody knows what it is. You're in a band that everybody knows about. So now you're in that position. On the other side of this pandemic, what do you see for yourself? I mean, where do you see your future or your goals? What are they?
I definitely, obviously, still would like to put my show on, and I hope that it's not the first. But I don't know. I know that I went through the last year of realizing that I have a place in this community, like for this time and the time after. I do. I just kind of like what we were talking about earlier. I don't just whatever I can do to help, Oran. Like, if the effects of this are long lasting and as economically detrimental as I think they could be, people here are going to need a lot of help in a lot of different ways. And I've been, I know a lot of people. I was born and raised here. I have a lot of connections with my family business, through my friendships, through the band, whatever. I want to help facilitate healing and growth for Lake Charles as much as I can. And I want to provide, love and release in the form of entertainment and music whenever it's safe and possible. And Lake Charles has, there are a lot of times where I took Lake Charles for granted, and a lot of times where I've taken the community for granted. But the truth is that this community has really allowed me to blossom. I've had a lot of privilege here, and there are a lot of people that have just been there for me. And I want to give that back in any way I can. You know what I mean? Yeah. I just want to be a servant of our community in any way that I can. And I don't mean that politically, like I'm not talking about running for office or anything like that. It's just, I want people here to know that I care about them. I don't care about their affiliation. I don't, whatever. Like if you're my neighbor and you're someone in our community and there's something I can do for you, or there's a way I can facilitate help for your situation, I want to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm realizing the importance of my own backyard in this time, literally, and
Sure.
figuratively. And Lake Charles and Southwest Louisiana is my backyard. And I don't know what, my capabilities are. And I'm sure some people feel like me saying things like that are silly because I'm just, somebody who's in a cover band here or whatever. It's not me taking myself too seriously. It's just like any opportunity that I have to share some of the love and the blessings and the privilege that I have been undeservingly given. I want to take it,
Yeah.
The band was luck. Like I don't want to say that. I was just literally in the right place at the right time. Like somebody just gave me a chance. I hadn't been playing for years or, trying to be in a band. Like it just happened. And
so you
a
and
lot
your
of situations.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. No,
Yeah,
we had a little
no.
lag, and it cut you off,
finished.
so I thought you were.
No, I was finished. I really was. I was just kind of like figuring out how to complete that thought.
Well, I have a question. So, did you and your husband meet in the band, or were y'all together when you went into the band?
So, Joseph and I had been together for a year before I joined the band, and Joseph and I had kind of like we'd known each other for a while casually. We kind of had the same friends, but we weren't really friends. And I don't know. I didn't really like him. I don't know why. I just, I didn't know him. So, my feeling of that was wrong. But I think what it is kind of like we were talking about earlier. I was still in a phase where I really needed attention. And Joseph is very out there and attention grabbing as well, obviously. And I just think I recognized something in myself that I wasn't comfortable with in him. And so I projected onto him and didn't like him.
Interesting. Okay.
The first time that I actually had to sit down and have a conversation with him, it was like, oh, after the first 5 minutes, he was very intense for the first 5 minutes. And I was like, I was right, blah, blah, blah. And then I don't remember what he said, but he said something and the conversation changed directions. And he just all of a sudden kind of relaxed and became less peacocky and more just like a person having a conversation with me. And anyway, we started dating not long after that. And I traveled a lot with the band on the weekends because they would go out of town, and I was already good friends with several of the other band members. And I've always could sing. I just was not ever singing, like I sang in choir and I sang in church. And so Joseph knew that I could sing some, but they had an emergency and one of the members of the band had to leave for good. And they had a bunch of gigs on the books that they couldn't cancel and they didn't know what to do. So
Sure.
they called Taylor Lee, and Joseph said, listen, I know this is like really weird, but our set list and like you can sing. Do you think you could sing harmony on some songs for a few gigs? And I was like, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Not a problem at all. We never had a practice.
Wow. You just did it, right?
No, Joseph and Logan and I had a few like a little acoustic run-throughs in their apartment because they were living together at the time.
Oh, okay.
And then our first gig was a wedding, and it was great. And then they were like, okay, cool. Would you like to come do our next gig with us, which was like 3 nights at a casino somewhere in the middle of nowhere in Mississippi? And I was like, yeah. So, and that gig was really hard. I mean, to go from like not singing at all to having to sing 5 hours a night, 4 nights in a row, it was really weird. But it was awesome. And I couldn't believe it the whole time. I just could not believe it. It was like I said earlier, I just remembered being at OB's 17 years old, like watching Joseph and Judd and Paul and just wondering what it would be like to be that cool and be in that band. And then somehow a few years later,
Yeah.
So,
well, that seems like a big leap too. I mean, you said you could sing, but there's a big difference between singing and then performing. I mean, right? Getting up on stage.
I really did not. I mean, I've always, like I said, kind of been a character. There are a lot of, one of the themes of, my show is, okay, so my show is actually about my musical journey. It's called The Road to Freedom, because freedom is my alter ego.
Okay.
And, freedom, but freedom. And,
I got you. Oh, okay, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. So music really has just been this story throughout my whole life, but I didn't realize, or has played such a big part in my story, but I didn't realize, how much until the last few years. Like, so as a kid, I always just, loved music, and I would perform on my grandparents' and parents' fireplace. Like, that was my stage, right? No one in my family is musical, but we listened to a lot of music, always. And Friday nights, it was my parents. It was, Dwight Yoakam or,
okay.
Just like whatever. They would put something on, and we have hours of video footage of me with those, those little stacking rings that go on the. Okay, so I would put them on my feet and pretend like they were tap shoes, and I would flop around in those rings on the fireplace and sing into one of those Echo microphones. And I did that until I was like 13 years old.
Really?
No, I'm kidding.
I thought you were serious. It's like, wow, man.
Music has been the thing and music and motherhood are the things that have really helped me just discover, myself. And music has played in the Flamethrowers, and just being able to perform has really helped me to accept myself and love myself and be proud of myself in ways that I just didn't, I never imagined. There was a moment for me after you have a baby, it's really weird because you kind of like, I know that kind of is the same for dads too. Like you're not the same that you were before you had the kid.
Sure.
But you're not where you're going to be. So there's this weird, like, in between time where you just don't really know who this new you is, right?
Sure.
It's kind of like, I don't know, like your house has 3 roommates in them, and then a roommate leaves, and
yeah,
the someone else is going to fill that space, but you're not sure who it is, kind of like
Sure.
eventually. So I was really, Chuck Fest last year was like only a few months after Hazel was born, and we really hadn't done a lot of gigs. And for me to feel good about a gig that big, I need to be in a like specific place mentally, right? And I just was not. I was so nervous about it. I was so worried. And I was like really sick leading up to it. And I remember just pacing in front of the stage in the crowd, just walking back and forth, like with a hoodie on before the show, trying to kind of calm down and like get some of the people's energy. And it just, nothing was working. And I decided while we were changing our gear that I was just going to go set my stuff up and take a look at the stage just to get that part over with. And there had been a lot of people for the act before us. And I'd been backstage for a minute, and I walked on stage, and I set all my stuff up, and I gave myself a second, and I took a deep breath. And when I looked up, there was not like, there weren't even inches between people, Oran.
Really?
Right off Broad Street. Ryan Street was shoulder to shoulder from the stage past Broad, and the stage was on Division, like right where all that new construction was.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way for me to know how many people were there, but it was more than 3,000. And it was just this calm rushed over me, and there was just this moment of like, all of these people know that you just had a baby. None of these people care. None of these people care how you feel. They just are here to have a good time with you and your band family. And it was just this really like, and there were so many familiar faces in the crowd that I could see, people that I loved and respected, people I didn't know, people I hadn't seen in years. You know, it was just this really like, it was like this welcome home moment for me. And this realization of, it started the realization of, I have a music career. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that I had a music career until last year, and I've been in this band for 7 years.
Is it because it just settled on you and you were like, oh, this is a real thing? This is not just, I'm not just emerging into this now.
When I was little, I just always dreamed of being able to perform. And because I didn't really play a musical instrument and I was never in a band or actively seeking musical work, I just thought, you know what? That's just a dream of my heart that's probably not going to be, and that's okay. And so the fact that it has somehow happened anyway is just, you know, and not just, but like in a town where my family lives and I know everybody, and like I get to do it with my husband and with, you know, 4 other people that are like my brothers that I love and have been friends with for a long time. And it's just really, I just never have thought about it as a job because it doesn't feel like one, you know?
Sure. That's not a bad thing.
So the moment where I realized, like, because I've been having in between, like Bo and Hazel, I really was just feeling insecure about like I said, my place in Lake Charles and just my place in the world. I just felt like I didn't, like, well, what is my career going to be? Because I don't want to just be a stay-at-home mom, and I don't want to work at the car wash. Like, I'm questioning what my career is while I'm, you know, actively careering.
Sure.
And the Chuck Fest moment was just, it just really kind of set into motion that realization of, wow, not only do I have a career, but I have a successful career, and I have a career that I could be proud of, and I have a career that I love, that I want to keep doing and building upon. And that led me to the desire to create my own show and to do something for myself, because I am so proud of the place that I play, the part that I play in the Flamethrowers and what we are together. But I also, you know, for a long time, I was not interested in playing music with other musicians because I felt like I wasn't good enough. And I felt like I didn't have the experience to play with people outside of my band. And you know who actually, he's not with us anymore, but Brian Moore.
Yeah.
Did you know Brian?
Yeah, actually, when we get through today, I'll send you a link. We did a tribute episode about Brian.
Really?
Yeah.
Wonderful. I can't wait to listen to it. Well, a few years ago, our keyboard player, Wesley, invited me to play a little gig for his mom's surprise birthday party, and we put together a small little jazz group. And Brian was one of Brian was the bass player, and I knew Brian, but I hadn't played with Brian, and I hadn't played with anyone else in the group except for Wesley. And the first practice was at Brian's house, and I was really nervous. And I was just telling Brian, like, jazz is not my bag, man. I've never done anything like this before, blah, blah, blah. And Brian handed me a bottle of whiskey, and he, like, take a big sip of this. And I was like, okay. And he goes, and then he took one and he was like, all right, cool. So nobody here gives a shit how good you are. We're just here to have a good time. And I was like,
nice.
Oh, okay. And he was like, yeah, so just think about that. We all like you. Nothing you're going to do is make any of us upset. Like, let's just have fun. And and I was like, okay. And it just, that group was so much fun, and I had a great time with them. And I know everybody misses Brian terribly, but anyway, I've reached a point now where I'm still, obviously unsure because I haven't played with a lot of musicians other than the Flamethrowers, but I know I'm confident in myself and my abilities now. And I would like to start, reaching out and doing more projects and working with other people. And the music is collaborating with people artistically is such a, it's cool. It's fun. It's great. And I'm wanting to do that.
Yeah, well, you're wanting to continue on that career path. I mean, that career path that's going to allow you to connect with the community, to do good for the community. I relate to that. I understand. I mean, I'm not musically, but I get it. I mean, you want to be able to use what you're good at to help other people. I mean, that's and your community.
I mean, like I said earlier, it's like I'm not trying to take myself too seriously. I don't have any grandiose delusions. I just know that, hell, even if one person is interested in my voice and listens to me, like, I want to do my best for them, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's ultimately what I have to remind myself of that all the time, especially when I'm in a conversation where it's starting to maybe even devolve. I have to remind myself sometimes that it's okay. I don't have to, there's no winning. I don't have to win this conversation. I'm just some guy, you know? So ultimately, I'm kind of glad I'm just some guy, because I can always just go, well, I'm just some guy. I mean, all I have is thoughts, I mean, I can't, thoughts and experiences just like everybody. And it brings me down. It reminds me that we're all just some guy or just some gal, ultimately. No matter who we think we are, ultimately, we're just some guy or gal out there.
And I'm happy, I know it.
This episode's Fishing for Goodies Fishbowl sponsor is Brimstone Museum and Henning Cultural Center in Sulphur, Louisiana. I don't know what you look for when you travel, but one of the things I look for when I'm putting together my itinerary is a unique museum or gallery in the city I'm traveling to. I do this almost every time I go to a new city, but if I'm being honest, I'm guilty of not always doing that very thing right here at home in Sulphur, Louisiana. That's really a shame, because we have one of the most interesting, historically relevant, and culturally rich corners in any city in the country about 2 minutes from where I'm sitting right now. I'm talking about the Brimstone Museum and Henning Cultural Center. Have you ever really thought about why our city is named Sulphur? They've got a permanent exhibit on the history of the sulfur industry that answers that simple question and more. You really get a full scope of just how important the sulfur mining industry was to the development of Southwest Louisiana and the impact it had on the rest of the world. Yes, the rest of the world. On the same property, right next door to the museum, is the Henning Cultural Center, presenting some of the most interesting, modern, and culturally relevant local art shows I've ever seen. My dear friend Tom Trahan and the Brimstone Historical Society have really worked hard to give us this treasure, and it's a multifaceted jewel that I plan to take advantage of more often. You don't have to wonder what their hours are, or how to get there, or what shows are coming up. Just go to brimstonemuseum.org like I did, and subscribe to their mailing list right there on the homepage. That's brimstonemuseum.org. Tom will make sure you start getting the announcements for each and every new show at the gallery. But you don't have to wait for the mail to arrive to enjoy this historical local treasure. You don't have to be guilty, like me, of overlooking a local wonder that conveniently sits next to the Grove, one of the most beautiful walking parks in Southwest Louisiana. Drop in and say hi to Tom for me. Tour the museum and center, and make sure to tell Tom that you heard about Brimstone Museum on Find the Good News. Now, let's take that dive in the fishbowl.
So you did listen to Ashley's episode, right? You said?
I did.
Did you get to the fishbowl? the fishbowl section of her episode. Did you get to that
part?
part?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Is that at the end? Is it closer to the end?
It is closer to the end. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So
I was not able to pay full attention at that point.
Okay. Well, then you're about to really have a good time, hopefully.
All right.
So I don't know if you can see this right here.
Yeah.
This is the fish bowl, and every guest that's been on this show. Well, I want to say every guest. We didn't have this in the early days. The fish bowl was born out of my desire to ask too many questions, and I just couldn't ask them all. So I decided to put them all in this fish bowl, and we would just save them till the end of the show. And so what we do is every guest would draw 3 questions out of the fish bowl, and we would just talk about them. If I draw a question that you do not want to answer, we will draw another card.
Okay.
But I'm going to reach in here for you, so I'm going to be your proxy since we're social distancing here.
Thank you. Yeah,
right.
Totally.
Okay, here we go. This is your first question. Okay. Could you ever grow your own food? That's an interesting question. I'm
working on it right now.
Really? Is that something new, or is that something that you've always done?
No, I've not always done it. Definitely not. I've tried it a few times, and we are still trying. When I say I'm growing my own food, I mean, I have 10 plants in the garden, little.
Yeah.
So we're going to see how it goes.
Right.
So far, I've been able to keep all of my landscaping alive.
Well, that's good.
That I put in myself.
Yeah.
So working on that, and I'm keeping some house plants and some patio plants alive. So right now, I could not support myself by growing my own food, but I'm hopeful that in time, if I needed to, we would be able to. Yeah.
Yeah, I could say that probably a very similar thing. Michelle and I have enough property to grow our own food if we wanted to make a little homestead out of the place, but the conversation that we have all the time about it, we have the desire, but it's the time. I mean, to have a full-time job and do that would be very difficult. We would really have to figure that out, and we might have to, who knows, before it's over with. That might not become just a luxury. It might be a necessity before it's over with, But
So my neighbor, sorry.
No, go ahead.
My neighbors down the street have a big property, like all the lots on our side of the street, most of them are the same. So we have a bunch of almost half-acre lots on our side of the street, and about 5 houses down, there's a family that has a garden in the front and in the back. I mean, it is just, he does landscaping, so they know what's up, and they are always in it. Always.
Yeah.
So it's super cool, and it's totally possible if you have a space to do it. I mean, they, like I said, they do it in the front yard too. They have utilized all of their space.
All of it, yeah.
They homeschool, and they have 5 kids, so their kids help them too. They've got the time to do it.
Yeah. Well,
I don't think once we are not quarantined, I will not have the time to fully run a garden.
Yeah.
But
and a workable homestead is a really different thing. I mean, Michelle and I have talked about that quite a bit. I said, I'm highly interested in it, and I'm always looking for information about it. And I mean, really for a long time, but it's just having the opportunity. It's a real, I think, like homeschooling, homesteading, or micro homesteading, whatever the right term is a commitment. I mean, you have to say, I'm doing this, and make some major changes. Yeah, it's a little farm. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. I grew up, I spent a lot of time at my grandmother's house, and, back in the very, very late 70s, early 80s, I would say that was what that environment was like. It was most everything you ate was produced right there on that property, and even soap and things like that were made there. But I was very young, and so I was telling Michelle this, we were reminiscing, and I said, our generation was sort of insulated against that because it really fades out for me around 5, 6, 7 years old. And then that wasn't really passed on to my parents, so they didn't do the homesteading thing. And then, me, it's almost like I'd have to make a conscious effort to do that. It'd take some critical decisions. I'd have to change some major things.
It would probably, you could probably manage it seasonally. You know what I mean? Like, kind of like days, like you have your busy season, but still, I don't know that you would be able, it would be hard to have a job outside of your home.
Exactly. Your home is your
'Cause
job.
it is
Yeah.
full time. It's full time. And that's
right.
another thing that's so exhausting about this right now is just like the chore wheel.
Yeah.
Feeding, preparing food for
Yeah.
everyone, feeding everyone, then cleaning up after everyone,
Yeah.
then cleaning up after the cooking, then you start again, you know?
I agree. No, same thing. It's you know, it's even like, it's funny, the toilet paper thing. I think it was interesting how that was something that was just sought after so much. But what was very strange, I read an article and I thought, yeah, that makes sense. Why there's a shortage still was because, you know, they were saying 70% of the time people weren't in their homes. They were using toilet paper at the place they worked or at the schools. And now you're home, you know, all the time. So all this usage went up. So I was like, yeah, I guess that makes some sense.
That does make sense. I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was probably still people.
Yeah, well, sure. The hoarding was real, for sure.
But that makes me feel better about it.
Yeah, it did make sense as to why when you go to the store now, even you don't see anywhere near the stock, you know, that we did.
Diapers. For diapers and formula too, that would make some sense because of like daycares and things as well.
Yeah. Yeah, there were things like that I thought, okay, well, that's probably a part of at least why it's not being replenished like it was.
Definitely.
Well,
I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah, me either. I was an interesting article. I was like, well, that gives me a little perspective. Oh, this is a really good question, your second question.
Oh, good.
Wow, I don't even know how I would answer this. I'd love to answer it myself. So, okay, this is good.
We can take turns.
I'm going to have to meditate on this one even after we get off of our call today. So, what is the simplest truth you can express in words? Man, that's some heavy stuff.
Simplest truth I can express in words.
Yeah, like what's true? Like, that's a very interesting thing. We talk about this a lot in our family. And we kind of take the Obi-Wan Kenobi approach here, you know, that most of the things we cling to are only true from a certain perspective. But there are things that each person, I think, if you really get down to it, probably something you go, oh, for me, this is a truth. This is a deep truth. Music.
Yeah. I mean, it is like, even Bo is, my son is 2.5, and he likes to make up songs all the time, you know, but even those silly little songs are like a true expression of who he is and how he's feeling, you know? And one of the cool things about music and lyrics and stuff is like, you don't have to write a song for it to share your message, you know? Like it's about, there are just so many different ways that you can express truths about yourself and life and everything through music, I think. And you don't even have to have words to do it, you know? Like there's one of my favorite guitar solo of all time is Fleetwood Mac's Silver Spring and the instrumental break, Lindsey Buckingham's instrumental solo. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do.
Well, if you don't, you should check it out. The way he plays the guitar and that instrumental solo, like every time I hear it, it makes me cry. It feels like he has just reached out of whatever I'm listening to into my heart and is just playing my heartstrings, you know? Like there's this vibration and that's incredible to me because it's like, okay, Lindsey Buckingham recorded that forever ago somewhere on a, you know, recording device, and then it's been sent out across the airwaves and through computer speakers and whatever many times since then. And no matter where I hear it, no matter what I hear it from, it always gives me the same reaction. So for me, music.
We talk about that a lot. I mean, maybe not music necessarily, but we do talk about sound in our home quite a bit. In fact, we were talking about it last night, you know, that, and I'm sure you've seen these videos that have been out there. They've kind of made the circulation where people will apply certain sound frequencies to water or sand, and they make these patterns. And, you know, if you can look at that and say, oh, that's true, right? Here's a physical representation of a sound. I can't see it, but this is the pattern it makes. Then by that logic, then every sound makes a pattern. And that kind of gets into what I would consider my personal truth if I get too far off. But that pattern, every time I speak, the tone with which I speak, whether it's softly or loudly, I'm making these beautiful pieces of art that you can't see, and you're walking through. If you can hear, you're walking through this all the time. Yeah. That's incredible. And so to string music together, this timeless thing, and it hits different people a certain way. I mean, there's so much to it beyond just what we think we are experiencing. You
could say then almost that we kind of have the same truth in our voices. You know what I mean? Because for me, my expression of music is my voice. So. Yeah.
And to be able to produce that with your vocal cords, how beautiful is that?
It's really cool. And I've been taking voice lessons for the last 6 months, and my vocal coach is amazing. I found him on Google. It was a shot in the dark, and it was one of the best moves I've ever made. And it's been so cool to learn about my instrument and just learning about how my voice can carry energy, you know?
Yeah.
Like you said, it does. It carries energy. Yeah. And I've been learning a lot in the last few months, and even I've been able to practice just personally singing a lot around the house. And I can't wait to be able to share my truth with people in person, you know?
Yeah. Speaking of that, it reminds me of one of my favorite things to listen to. And I think my family kind of halfway chuckles because it's not their favorite thing to listen to. But I love listening to Tuvan, throat singing. You know what I'm talking about? Okay. Yes. You know, and it's got the...
You have some recommendations for me, yeah.
Yeah.
So I would love some recs on stuff like that.
Well, I love that stuff, and that I listen to it mainly fascinated by the fact that is just someone's throat producing these sounds, wild. And these sounds hit you in different ways. You know, they're meditative, and it just fascinates me what we can do as human beings if we apply ourselves in that way with our bodies.
Have you ever seen any videos of I think they call it chord singing or whatever? It's they used to do it, or they do it in some churches, not so much anymore, but everybody sings together, and they, I cannot remember what it's called. I'll Google it and I'll send it to you.
Okay.
But, there's an example of it in a movie with Tom Hardy and they're like some outlaw dudes somewhat in
is it the Prohibition era show? Yeah.
Probably. And there's a church scene, and there's a scene of them doing whatever this type of singing is called. That's not the best example. There are some really, really cool recordings and videos of people I cannot remember what it's called.
I would definitely like to see that, though, if you can send me some of that.
Yeah. I'll ask Joseph what it's called, because he knows what it's called, and I'll tell you, and you can check it out. It's a very different vibe than the throat singing, but it's kind of that same, you feel it in your chest. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I used to tell people, I know this sounds silly, but those old vacuum cleaners that we had when I was a kid, they had like the big metal base and the big bag. When I would vacuum, or my mom would vacuum, it was so relaxing. And when I first got into meditation and started doing Tibetan chanting, it very quickly, it hit me. I was like, oh, that's the same. It's the vacuum cleaner vibration. It's like somewhere for me, and maybe it's different for everybody, I have to assume it is, that resonates with my energy spot that just sort of opens me up to the right things, you know, that particular vibration, you know.
So for me, it's the car wash tunnel.
Oh, I believe that. Yeah, right on.
It so is. Like that whooshing, that's a white noise, like a white machine. Yeah.
That sounds relaxing for sure. I could see that being just sitting in a car. If you could just put that on loop, because you're in sort of a cocoon then, you know.
This is not an ad, but the new McNeese tunnel, the tunnel in McNeese, it's different. It's our newest. It's different than the other ones. And the way, I wish that I could just I wish I could just ride through a car and sleep in there like all day long because it's just so. It sounds so good. It sounds so good.
I hear you. I never thought of that, but I could imagine that. Yeah. Now I got to go. I'm going to have to go take a ride through it. I haven't been to Lake Charles in a while, so I'll have to go do that. My truck needs a wash so bad. Well, your last question is definitely not like your first one, so I'm going to read it to you, and you can maybe this will pop something in your head. Maybe you have one of these. So, what is your favorite all-time selfie, and what was going on in that picture?
My favorite all-time selfie. Hold on.
Or maybe it doesn't have to be a selfie. Maybe it's just a picture that you like.
All right, so I'll tell you about one of my favorite pictures. Sorry. Man, I have a lot of favorite pictures, and really most of them involve my children, or like they're coming into this world. One of my favorite pictures that I have is from Hazel's birth. Two of them. One of them is we were going from one room to the other a few minutes before Hazel was born at the hospital. They had the room with the bathtub open up, and that was my request. And this was like 15 minutes before she was born. I know you've never been in labor, but you have children, so you know what's up.
Yeah, sure.
One thing, let me just tell you, 15 minutes before a baby is born is probably a fairly intense time for the mom. And I had a natural delivery, so anyway, we were moving from one room to the next, and I had a contraction, and one of my very best friends was there, and she was helping, and there's a photo of she's giving me a hug in the front. I'm like supporting myself on her, holding her, and Joseph is hugging me from the back. And it's just this like beautiful picture of my labor support team and just how wonderful and present and there they were for me. And the nurse who was there, actually, she's standing in the doorway, like not out of frame, but you can just see her. And she's just smiling and looking at us. She's the nurse that delivered me whenever I was born, and she was on staff the day that Hazel was born.
Oh, really?
And yeah, her whole I wanted a home birth, and Joseph was not ready for that, and that was okay. So we made some concessions and a plan to make a hospital birth similar to a home birth for me. And my nurse was amazing. She just completely left us alone, it's just this really cool picture of like my birth team and representative of how they supported me and cared for me and made me feel empowered. And the next favorite photo is the one of Joseph caught Hazel. The doctor was not there.
Oh, really?
Too early.
Wow.
Yeah. So there is a photo of Joseph and I like holding our newborn child with just this look on our faces of like, oh my God, I can't believe that we just did this. And that was one of my other favorite photos because it was just such a cool, empowering moment that unintentionally we did together, you know? So
I love that. I love that because there's stories. You know, I love the idea of stories. I love that objects have stories and pictures have stories. I mean, the word selfie almost implies, you know, that you love it because you looked great or the lighting was good or there was something in the background. There's maybe not as much of a story. It's about the self, really, really hyper focused on the appearance. But what you gave, those two examples, there's a story, there's a meaning to it. I love that.
I just can remember. I can remember exactly how I was feeling when I look at both of those pictures. Especially the picture of like my friend and Joseph. It just, oh, by the way, she has a 3-year-old daughter, and her 3-year-old daughter was in tow and took the picture.
Really?
Yeah. Because my birth photographer didn't make it in time.
Wow. Well, that's cool too. So there's even more of a story there.
Yeah. It's just, or maybe the birth photographer took that one. I might be wrong, but one of the pictures that is my favorite, the daughter took and not the birth photographer, because she was just holding her mom's phone and was right there. So, hey, yeah, we're talking about you. But
that's a happy baby.
She really is. She's so sweet.
Look, smiling.
She's been. Oh, you're trying to take my glasses. It's been great having her time, for sure. I was really worried about having 2 kids being outnumbered, but I love my little crew.
So how many children you have? You have 2, or do you have 2 children?
Just have 2.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't think we're done, but I'm not thinking about that right now.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, I have three, and I am done. So, but I'm 40. I'll be 46 this year, so I'm done. I think I'm done. I'm pretty sure Michelle's done too.
Oldest is 22, and how old's your youngest?
My youngest is 9. Yeah, I have I have one that'll be 17 soon. So I've got a 22, 17, and 9.
So y'all have really been able to like fully enjoy the stages of those kids.
Yeah, big gaps the between them. Right? I mean, it's
that's not bad. That's great.
Each generation, and they're all different. Each one of them, I raised in the same homes, but each one's different. I found that fascinating. The similarities are there, but they're mostly different.
I'm already seeing that with my 2.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful thing. I mean, it makes me, it gets into some of the things that I feel that are deep truths, that when people are individuals. I mean, and that kind of gets into our conversation, that individualism can be beautiful or toxic. And I think it is beautiful that we're individuals. I think that there's a way to lean into that and shine and be better, and then connect with the whole dang human organism, and us work together. I think that's a good thing.
Really agree.
Well, this has been fun. I have one last question, and when this all is over with, I'm going to give you one of these. Every guest gets one. It's a yellow coffee mug that says "Find the Good News" on it.
Oh, I can't wait. But
on the back of that coffee mug is a question, and the question is, did anything good happen today?
Yes. I've had lots of good things happen today. Hazel says yes. But I would like for this, this is my good thing today. Really, truly. I was looking forward to this. Like I said before, I've pretended to be on podcasts lots of times. I've never been asked to be on one, and I always wanted to. And this has been so much fun, and it's been so nice to just get to talk to you and to talk about all these things. And I'm really happy that you decided to have me on. Yeah, well, I'm excited. I was excited to talk to you too. This is a big change for me. Most of the local people I've talked to, I've gotten to invite them into the studio. And like I said, I can't hide behind the studio anymore. So I hope this was a good experience for you. And maybe once all this is over with, we can do a round 2, because I want to be able to follow up with you and see how you're putting yourself out in the world when this is done. Yeah, I would love to. That would be so great. Hopefully next time we talk, either maybe my show will be, it'll have happened or it'll be about to happen. Yeah. Next time we talk on the podcast, not next time we talk, I would hope you're a very nice person who has provided me with lots of wonderful things to think about, and I will definitely be at least talking to you on Facebook. Yes, I know. We definitely intersect on Facebook. Well, hope you consider me an ally and consider this show an ally. And I love you just as well. Thanks for listening to my conversation with Dominique Darbonne. If you found something good in this conversation, consider helping me keep the signal strong by supporting Good News at patreon.com/findthegoodnews. I thank you for pressing play, for listening, and for sharing good news.